So I hope that when you daven Marav tonight, you said the same Tali Matar. It's okay, you don't have to... it's amazing when this time of the year comes around and we start saying the same Tali Matar Levrach. Do you ever notice that there are some people, they love banging before Shemon Esrei, certain people get they get a high from it. So like the first couple of days after you start saying the same Tali Matar, it's a good time of the year for them. Then you have, of course, the very well-intended people. This goes on for the next couple of weeks, that when it gets to the same Tali Matar, they say it very loud. Saying Tali Matar Levracha. We know. It's the same people generally that, bang by Yalav Yavai, if you notice. That's also, I don't know about you, but when I was in yeshiva, this was always an issue. All the kids used to bang. You would think if everyone's banging, no one needs to be reminded to say Yalav Yavai. Okay. I'm not sure if everyone said Yalav Yavai, but everyone definitely banged. Okay? And then whoever was taking care of Schachter would say, no one is to bang, okay? By Yalav Yavai. That's it. No one is to bang. Then you hear this secret bang coming from there. Who banged? Who was it? This is always like a major, every Rosh Chodesh. It was one of the things we used to look forward to as Rosh Chodesh came, the banging business. I want to tell you something. I used to take care of davening in camp. I did this for a couple of years. A couple of hundred kids. It was a very, very exciting situation. Especially when everybody else walks out on you and they leave you alone in the Beis Medrash with a couple of hundred kids and you have to try to control them during a long davening or Tisha B'Av by Kinnis. It's always very exciting. I don't know why this story came to my head. Now, I told you this once before. This actually happened, that it was the middle of Kinnis. It was like 150 degrees outside, 250 degrees inside, something like that. And all of a sudden, I'm trying to get everyone seated to survive this Tisha B'Av. And this bird flies in and starts flying around the shul. That's all I needed. Right? The kids were going. So I had to think fast. So I banged on the table. And I said, and then the bird had their cheretz to me. It perched itself on one of the things, one of the ledges on the side. It was the only one that stopped when I banged. And I said, you see that bird? That must be a neshama. That didn't say kinnis. And is now crying its heart out. And we have to be misaking that neshama. And you're going to play around? And believe it or not, they took me seriously. And everyone started saying the next piece of kinnis, I said, you see it sitting and watching us. We did it again. And then they were all waiting for the bird to have its tikkun. I was like, bird, just fly out the window. So then the bird picked itself up when we finished the next piece. And it made a beeline for the ceiling fan. Okay? I couldn't look. I said, no, bird, no, whoa. I want to tell you, it was very dramatic. The feathers all over the place and it flying. I went, and again, I had to think fast. I said, it had its tikkun. Do you realize the neshama had its tikkun? And now we have to keep being mispalent. Everybody was spooked out. They said kinnis. It's interesting. It didn't happen. I was in that camp for 15 years. The next time it happened was 10 years later. That a bird just flew in. This was in the middle of Ma'ariv. It was also one of those Ma'arivs. At night say that the fellow's Ma'ariv. Mishmer, Thursday night. And again, the bird flies in and it perches itself. And I said, I almost felt guilty saying it, but I said, listen, I told him the story of the first Tisha B'Av bird, and I told him the story of, I said, you see again, this bird probably didn't daven Ma'ariv, and this is the tikkun, we have to be mispalel, and they started davening, and we finished Ma'ariv, and they sat down to night seder. I said, you see, now the bird had its tikkun in tefillah, now it needs its tikkun in Torah. And guys were really serious. I said, birds, stay there the rest of the summer. And I was I'm going to make my way to the next pet shop and fill up the place with birds. This was working very good. Certain things work to generate hasmada. I know someone who is a very, very big shatran. I mean, big time shatran. And he told me that one of the biggest Rosh Yeshivas and one of the biggest yeshivas told him he should please come around to the yeshiva more often because the hasmada really goes good when he steps into the Beis Medrash. Sometimes there's a that helps. So, but it was just one bird, and they all daven Ma'ariv, and we finished Ma'ariv, and we finished learning. And again, you would think I should have shut off the fans, right? I think I actually did. but there was some clock that turned it back on. It must have gone with a thermostat. It just went on again. And this time the bird again made it straight. And this was very different than the first time. The first time, you would think it would have learned already from its Zayda or something, you know. The first time it ran in and there was this flurry of feathers. This time it went Nebuch right into the fan that I knew what was going to happen. I closed the fans. Just the thermostat turned it on again. And it went right into the fans and it was an even slice. Like the head went one way and the rest of the bird landed on the table in front of us. Everyone stepped back. And I said, I had to really think fast. I said, it spoke Lashon Hara. And that's why its mouth was disconnected from it. But now we have to be masaket it. And they're learning. They want to learn extra. And as we're learning, and I'm like telling them stories about neshamas and things, and I was positioned, the thing was like right next to me, and I was here, and all of a sudden I see the kids go, ah! And I'm like, oh no, what? And I turn around, and from my peripheral vision, I kid you not, this is what I saw. The bird without the head, okay, was like fluttering up in the air for a couple of minutes, and I want to tell you, boy, did that base medrash empty out quickly. I mean, through the windows, through the fire escape, boom, they were like, and I was like, what? Wait, that's not part of the script. Get down. You know, I was talking about neshamas. I wasn't serious. Like, I mean, and then it like landed on someone's tefillin. Oh, I was right thinking, okay, this guy spoke in his tefillin. But later, people told me that it can happen. I know it can happen because it happened. The nerves, whatever it was, the bird's nerves. The bird's nerves, actually my nerves that night. Boy, did I have nightmares. All right, so taking care of Schachter in a camp could be very challenging. I did so for quite a while, for many, many weeks. I didn't find the problem was so much during the summer. I found that after the summer. It's very hard when you have like control of the base medrash. Sit down, go on that table. And then after the summer, and you go back to daven in a regular shul, you have to remember you're not in charge anymore. It's like when you snap your finger, no! Who are you? You're right. Oh, sorry, like, you know. Or worse, you tell somebody in a shul on your corner, leave the base medrash. Who are you? Oh, sorry. We're like, let's go. For about Phyllis starts, come on, a good Aman Yeshmei Rama, let's go. You start throwing candies, you know, you lose it after a while. I remember. So, what's the best way to get kids to be quiet? You know, you really you can ask nicely. But when you send someone out and threaten he's going to have to leave camp because he doesn't behave in the base medrash, that's the best thing. So I always had this mahalach that I used to look up the camp list for a name that doesn't exist. Moshe Baruch. There's no Moshe Baruch. And then I would say, like, the third day, you have to, the first day it's always quiet. The second day, it's like Shana Rishayna, it's like Sheva Bracha, Shana Rishayna. By the fifth davening, it gets a little hot, and the kids are rowdy. So I would say you have to be quiet by davening. And of course, you always stress the positive side. You need a little small daichim in Mekarevis, you need a little bit small daich, a little discipline there, if not the. So at one point, I would say, all right, the next one who talks is going to have to leave the Beis Medrash. If you're going to talk now, you're going to have to leave camp. And I would say, Moshe Baruch, who didn't exist. Moshe Baruch, go to your bunk, pack your bags, and we're calling your car, we're calling your parents, you're going home. Everyone get quiet. You know? No one dared to see who Moshe Baruch was that walked out. And it was a great plan. I said, why do we have to embarrass a kid? We have to make a carbon out of an imaginary kid. I figured out. So that's the way it worked for a while. Then one year, Nebuch, this kid gets up and starts crying. I didn't say you do anything. His name wasn't on the list, you know. Like I didn't. Poor kid, his name was Moshe Baruch, you know. It's okay. I spoke to him. He didn't go off the derech. We made it up. I explained to him what I didn't mean him, and it was a whole thing, and it got everyone. So I asked him mechila, because if you inadvertently embarrass someone, you definitely have to ask him mechila, especially b'rabim. Actually, he was a kid that he was homesick and pinked him, but it was a shtick of mile because it brought attention to him, and he was, the staff took care of him when it had to be taken care of. I mean, the bunch of them is interesting ways of doing things. So, what was my Yalav Yavai? You don't want everyone banging before Yalav Yavai, right? You don't want Baruch Hashem. You don't say the same Talimat in the middle of the summer, but you don't want everyone banging by Yalav Yavai. So this was my mahalach. I watched people do this before. No one is to bang. Anyone bangs, you dock from first activity. No one is to bang. That's not the way I did it. I used to say, everyone bang. I davened before, so I was able to talk out. Every single person here has to bang to remind you about Yalav Yavai. Then I would go, I want to catch one person who didn't bang. Did you bang? You bang? You bang? Oh, you bang. Okay, and we'll bang once, and that was it. It's because they only banged once. Because if not, they bang, 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 bang. You have to moed and bang. This guy, everyone's up to Asher L'Tzim. If I get to Shmoneh, he starts banging. This way it was like, they say they fight some forest fires. You know how they fight some of the forest fires? They fight it by lighting fires. Right? Sometimes you have to tell them to bang in order to stop the banging. Rav Shvadron, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, says a story that he was in Hebron, I think, and they were davening Mincha, and it was late, so it was already after Shkia. So he was in Bacher, and he banged that no Tachton, because it shouldn't say Tachton when it's night, as some don't say Nefil Sabayim when it's night, or Shem Hashem. So I forgot who he said, who was Rashi in Hebron. Whoever, he called him over afterwards and said, we have a new Rav, and it was just a Bacher. Sorry. You have smicha. I want to say mazel tov to the new Rav. He paskins when he bangs. He paskins when you should say tach ma'amah. Forget the fact there's Rosh Yeshiva in front. It's like, Megiddo Shurim. The Bacher decided that time to bang. He said, Rav Shadron says, at the reis gerisif emir halb the per adam. He took half the wildness out of me. He said, suggesting the other half was still in Baruch Hashem, which he used for the right things. So, Lamaisa, I think people have a tendency, we love banging, and we love correcting, and we love being ma'oyer the tzibur, as long as it doesn't cost us money. As long as somebody once went over to someone, there's a famous story, and he said to him, you're supposed to stand up. I see you every single day. You're a little slow to stand up. He said, you're watching me every single day, whether I stand up or not. You never noticed I have ripped shoes, he said. Why don't you do that? So, now that we started saying the same Talimat Levracha, or at least we were supposed to, those you can be a minion from Ma'ariv here after. From the looks on some faces there, I think it'll be a minion of Ma'ariv after the Shir. But the most courageous story you ever heard about the Saint Talimat Levracha, yeah, believe it or not. Well, you all know the story of the Yaakov who said he's coming home late because they're starting to say the Saint Talimat. But in the Warsaw Ghetto, there were these groups of people. They never signed up, and they sat down and they started, and they were learning Daf Yomi under the most unbelievable of circumstances, with unbelievable Mesiras Nefesh. Actually, I had an uncle that was one of them. And my mother-in-law, Shalom, used to, in the ghetto, she would walk ahead of them. Because a lot of these Gera Bachram never cut their payas, they just never cooperated with the Germans at all. And they would walk along, and she would stop by the corner, turn in both directions, and whisper them to keep going. So a group was caught. And one of them was taken, and they started beating him. And it was very clear they were going to beat him to death. And at one moment, he ran away, and they grabbed him. They were holding him by his arms, and he was bleeding. And they said, you want to say something to your friends? One last thing, say it. So he turned to the other Bachrim that was standing there, tied up, and he said to them, remember, tonight we start saying the same Talimat Levracha. And they continued to beat him to death. And I don't know if you can appreciate the courage in that story. In essence, what was he saying? Guess what? Life is going on. Life is going to go on. Pasuk says, Yosef is walking, and Ish found him. Then a Toya Basada, he's lost in the field. So Rashi says, who's the Ish? The Ish is the Malach Gavriel, because it says Ish Gavriel. Say from the sons of Rav, from others. Last week's parasha, it also says Vayavik Ish Ima. Over there we say it was a Sar Shalaisov. How come here it's the Malach Gavriel who gave him all the Ramazim? The Balaturim brings Toya. He told him about all different Galus. Tuf is 400, the 400 years of Galus Mitzrayim. Ayin is the 70 years of Galus Bavel. The Hay is the end of the last Galus, which goes into the 6,000, end of 5,000 years. How come that Ish is Gavriel? And how come Vayavik Ish Ima in last week's parasha that was the Sar Shalaisov? So the Sons of Rav said, you see, it all depends. He says, you go over to someone and you say, listen, Barcheni, bench me. What does the guy say when Yaakov asked him to bench him? I got to go say Shira. He says, you go over to a guy, do me a taiva, I got to daven now. That's the Sar Shalaisov. Okay? When you're lost and he comes over and says, how can I help you? That's the Malach Gavriel, who the Chazal say was Memuna on Chesed and so on. So the inyan of banging is very nice. We want to correct people and make sure they remember Yalav Yavai. But to bang doesn't cost money. The question is, are we willing to bang the same way when you have to fight for a friend to protect him? And we don't just do mitzvahs to be yaitze. Bang and you gang weiter. If somebody picks someone up on the Palisades Parkway, he says, going to Muncie, yeah, come with me, shkayach. A lot of traffic, they get like to exit 7, he says, get out. He says, what did I do? He says, I made up every day to do an hour of chesed. The hour is up, out of here. Bang, gang weiter. I did my hour of chesed. Question is, are we willing to subject ourselves to the metzias of what is around us? They say this person's walking in front of there's some bachrim over there, and he's schlepping this huge bag on his head. He's almost falling to his floor, and he goes, guys, can you help? He goes, we're like into not speaking Lashon Hara, but there's a group down the block, they do chesed, go over there. Don't get me wrong, it's very good to have groups that don't speak Lashon Hara, but the Rabbi Hashem writes the itinerary, and we may have our ideas of what chesed is. And if the Rabbi Hashem sends somebody there, then that's the one that's a simon. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do. And that's how we differentiate. When things don't go according to the way we planned, then we have to do something out of what we would like. So that indicates the original chesed that we're doing, or they're not speaking Lashon Hara. Are we doing so because it's popular, or are we doing so because we want to fulfill the Ratzon Hashem? Who are we? Where are we? What is the chiluk between a son and an Eved who works, right? We're bonim l'fnei hamakim, avadim l'fnei hamakim. The Eved does his job, the son does his job. Ever walk into the post office, and there's like 50 windows there, and there's only 2 people standing there, long line out the corner, and you look in the back, it's like 100 people milling around. They say, what? That's not their job, stand by the window, the union doesn't let. It is, an Eved l'fnei hamakim, then they're not avadim, but an Eved, this is my job, and that's it. A Ben says, a son that's working in his father's business, work for the post office. No. But a Ben that, some of my best friends work for the post office. I don't mean anything against the post office. I just mean to say, this is human nature. Human nature is I do my job, and gegangen weiter. The son that works in his father's business, he runs to the window, will pack the bags, he'll do whatever it takes. What's the difference? The customer has to be happy. He said, if your bonim l'fnei hamakim says, of course I made up today not to speak Lashon Hara. This guy needs me to schlep his bags. Or this, I made up today, I'm schlepping bags, and now my Nisayan is about to speak Lashon Hara. Whatever Nisayan comes in front of you, that's what I do. Shem writes the script. Shem writes the script. It takes a lot of courage sometimes to do something which wasn't on your particular script. It's harder to bang. I also wondered, if you miss the same Talimata, you have to repeat Shemon Esrei, and we know all the halachas. What about all the other words in Shemon Esrei? Do we say it? I mean, there are a lot of words that if you miss, you're not Yoitz Shemon Esrei. Shomei Tefillah, don't forget. You know what I mean? The Bracha Bavais, remember, you're not Yoitz, you don't say it. Maidim, some sheet is old. So we say, when they call out, don't forget to say the 2 words, or 3 words, the same Baracha, the same Talimatar. Remember, there are other words in Shemon Esrei that have to be said also. So there's 90 times, there's an eitzah, because if you're mesupik, whether you said the same Talimatar or not, so the first 30 days, so you have to, first 90 Shemon is actually first 30 days. That's it, there's a chiluk between Meir Geshem, the same brachas there, you have Musaf, you're not. So there's an eitzah, you say 90 times, that's kol minei siviyasa l'toiva, the same Talimatar l'vracha, and then if you're mesupik, then you assume that you said the right thing. So I used to, every Shtat Shabbos, that we start saying the same Talimatar, the same Baracha. So I have this thing in my house, we have this niggin, we all sing it together 90 times. I used to do it in my class, and remember we sang the niggin, and then we had a Baltfila that came up, and we sang it. But as we were singing the niggin, I said, you know what these words are saying? We can have all sorts of ideas of how to make money, of how we're going to have a blissful life. There's only one Rabbi Shalom that was saying Talimata Levracha that knows what's good for us. Now, a lot of times things don't work out the way we planned and we get upset. And it's Kedai to say that 90 times. It's Kol Mini Siviyas L'Taiva, yeah, great. On the books it all makes sense. But there's only one Rabbi Shalom that's the saying Talimata Levracha. Only one. No other. Somebody once came to... I heard this from someone who says that I heard it from a Yid Grad this week who said that he heard it from someone who heard it from the Bala Uvda, that the Chafetz Chaim once met a Yid. The Chafetz Chaim asked him how are things going. So the Yid said, "Volt nicht geschadet a bissel besser." give you a free translation. It says it wouldn't hurt if things were going a little better, parnasa-wise. So this is how he said the Chafetz Chaim say it. I repeat it in the Lashon though. He says the Chafetz Chaim said it. He says that the Rabbeinu Shalom is a reiche man, Shem Ish Mulchama. The Rabbeinu Shalom is rich. The Rabbeinu Shalom is a groise fargina. The Rabbeinu Shalom, what does the word fargin mean? Do you know what the word fargin means? Is there an English translation to the word fargin?
Really.
No, really. Fargina means with a leif type to feel good for someone else.
Really.
You want someone else to have it good. I'll tell you in the best context that I once heard this. In the mikveh, these two old people were arguing with each other. And one of them said that he was in Dachau or Mauthausen for 5 years. Another old man said, 5 years? Impossible. The most you could have been there was 4 years. He goes, you going to tell me how long I was there? I was there 5 years. Yeah, you're talking about the Germans came at them in 1943 and 42 and 38. No, I was there 4 years. They're holding their towels. It's going to be a war, sword fight of towels. I'll never forget there was a third old man who went over to the one that was arguing with him, and he said these words. Verginsne shayid nach a year in the lag. He says, you can't give a yid another year in the concentration camp. He says, you all excited for it. He was there 5 years. So what? Verginnen. Verginnen means the guy needs something. He needs compassion. He needs whatever he needs. The verginnen. So the Chafetz Chaim said the Rabbeinu Shalom is a reiche man. The Rabbeinu Shalom is rich. The Rabbeinu Shalom has all the money in the world. And the Rabbeinu Shalom is a verginnen. The Rabbeinu Shalom wants to give. And the Rabbeinu Shalom loves everyone that he created. So what does that mean? It meant as if you don't have more than you have right now, Voltis the Yagishadet. That means you're saying it wouldn't hurt if I had a little more. Well, obviously it would hurt if you had a little more. Because if the Rabbeinu Shalom is rich, and the Rabbeinu Shalom is a fargina, and the Rabbeinu Shalom loves everyone, so he would give it to you. So if he's not giving it to you, it's not good for you to have more. So don't say it wouldn't hurt if you would have more. Says the Chafetz Chaim. The emissaries of Schwab, Chaim Levracha, used to say that Tchias HaMesim, why is the brach of Moed HaGeshem at Tchias HaMesim? Because the rain only works after the seed disintegrates. He says a lot of times we dive in and we try to do a shtadlis, and it looks like my tefillas are going nowhere. It's all falling apart. You don't understand that where it looks like it's falling apart, that's where it's going from. As Kol Minei Siviyasa L'Toiva, but only a Kadosh Baruch Hu understands the same Tali Motel Levracha. The bracha of Mevorech Hashonim, that tzaddikim say, is sometimes you have the bracha, the Yecheskel, the Shina V'Rav, and say from others, the Ber Moshe from the Yershev Rebbe says it, that there's the bracha of Refa'enu. And sometimes the Refa'enu, there's not enough schusim, so you go to the Baruch Aleinu. And once you say Baruch Aleinu, you say Hashem, you're giving Parnasa, but you got to give Parnasa to people that are alive, right? So Agav, you have to give life also. He quotes the Gemara in Tainus that says once there was a hunger and there was also a sickness, and they decided to daven for the hunger because man de yav chaya, man de yav nezayne lechaya yav. The Reb Shlomo Zavil used to explain like this: everyone comes down to this world with the following: 10% health, 10% money, 10% honor, 10% shalom bayis, 10% whatever. It all adds up to 100%. Tinig noilid v'kikr b'yada. You come down with everything you need. There are times in your life that things change, and the Rebbeinu Shem says, this person is Rachman al-Itzlan facing a health crisis. The 10% of health is not enough for him. We have to borrow from one of the other tanks. So the first thing a Kadosh Baruch Hu takes from is from the covet, because that hurts the least. So he comes home one day and his wife says something not nice to him, or the husband says something not nice to the wife. You come to shul and someone makes this nasty comment at work. You want to blow up. How dare that person talk to me? And here's what Kadosh Baruch Hu is doing for you. He's taking away from your covet to give to your health. Or he's taking away from your money to give to your health. The Rabbeinu Shalom is repositioning, right? What's it called in hockey, lahavdil, a power play? You take the goalie out when you need to. The Rabbeinu Shalom repositions, right? The guy hits to the left, you move everyone, you shade everyone over to the left. The Rabbeinu Shalom repositions ourselves so that we're best prepared for what's coming. Well, that's only an assumption that the guy's going to hit to the left. All of a sudden he can hit to the right, no one's there. But the Rabbeinu Shalom knows for sure what's coming. And the Rabbeinu Shalom repositions. And the Rabbeinu Shalom repositions our storage houses, and sometimes we get very angry when we get an extra parking ticket that wasn't supposed to be there. When the customer didn't work out, or we lost money in a way that it didn't work out. The Rabbeinu Shalom is saying, you know what, you're fighting it, fine, I'll give it back to you. But we don't know where we need this on another side. We don't know how that works, how that goes. Somebody once came to the Barditcheva. He cried. Has to marry off a daughter. So the Barditcheva told him, buy a lottery ticket, you're okay. We go lottery again. Buy a lottery ticket, you're okay. He buys a lottery ticket, he has the winning number, that's it. It's a done deal. He's already counting, what kind of tires he's going to have for his Rolls Royce. And that night he sleeps in the inn on the way back, and boom, the Paritz knocks on the door. A Paritz was sleeping next door, a local landowner. He says, I just had a dream. My father came to me in a dream and said that there's a Jew next door who has the winning lottery number. He says, give it over. I can't believe this. What are you doing in this barditch of a story? A Paritz's father's dream. They shake him down, they find the ticket, and finally the Paritz says, I'm scared you're going to claim I stole the ticket. And that's going to question my... the legality or the legitimacy of my winning it. So the Paritz takes out his ticket. He says, we're switching. And there's two witnesses that we switch tickets. Ha-ha! Now you won't be able to say that I stole it from you. He comes home, he's Iceman, she's the bracha. He says, listen, it wasn't, obviously God could have given it to me, and it wasn't Zoicha to the bracha, and that's it. The next day he goes to check, and he sees that the Paritz's ticket won. So they went to the Barditcheva and they said to him, the poor guy, you have to win the lottery ticket, you have to go to curveball, they're giving the straight tickets right there and then. So the Barditcheva said, listen, the Paritz gave him a few dollars over there. Meanwhile, in between, to legitimize the contract, he said, I need a little money beforehand. But there's a tifur of art here. There are times where the Rebbe says, I can't give you this bracha straight. You understand? Because you need certain things to live. You need certain things to go on. You need certain schusim. I have to shift it in a way that we get it in through the back door. And sometimes we fight that back door so badly. And when we fight it, he could have taken the Parasha stick and threw it to the ground and give up. And that's it. I'm angry. I've had enough. And he would have lost the lottery. You've got to be very careful and understand how the Rabbi Shalom shifts things. That it's his kol mini siviyasal l'tayva. We can have all the good ideas, but only one Rabbi Shalom knows was saying talimata levrach. But you got to be willing to be makir the hashgacha around you that it is the Rabbi Shalom. The Altaf in the Vardik was a very powerful person. And he used to, he took no prisoners, shall we say. He said that in World War I, everybody was running for their lives and he was building yeshivas and he had his talmidim go back and forth. He didn't take no for an answer, nothing. So there was a very rich man, his name was Donash. I don't know if that was his first name or last name, but that's what he ate, but his name was Donash. And this Donash used to give, London. And he used to give, thank you, David. And he used to give a lot of money to the Altaf in the Vardik. As a matter of fact, when the Altaf in the Vardik came to him, he would open up his treasure chest, say, take what you want. Right? I'm going to say about this stingy little Yidl that came to him once. He said, I know you never give, but I have here a Yid. Look at him. He has to marry off 10 kids. And look at his soles of his shoes are coming off. Looks at it. He goes, come. Takes him into his oitzer of money. Finally, this person who brought him says, I broke his heart. And there's stacks and stacks of hundreds, stacks and stacks of hundreds. He goes, I feel, my heart is bleeding, I have to help you. He takes a big stack of hundreds, takes off the rubber band, he says, here, put this around your shoe. You're going to see. So the guy goes, and when the Altaf and the Vardik came to Donash used to say, here, take whatever you want. You open up the storage houses, take whatever you want. So once a covered Yid came, and he also had yeshivas and things, and Donash gave him a little check. He wasn't so happy. He says, can I ask you something? He says, why the Altaf and the Vardik you give, unlimited to me? He says, I can see the way you came now, that before you left, you went to your wife, and you said to your wife, I have an appointment now with Donash. Straight, my hat, pays, everything straight, done. Okay, look good? Yeah, okay. Be careful. Remember, don't be too nervous. Speak calmly, You probably rehearsed a couple of times. You walked up, coughed, straightened out your tie, knocked on the door. You came in and said, Rav Donash, what a covet. What a schus you have to be a moiker Torah. It's unbelievable. It's so beautiful, yes. And you sat down and you asked me for money. And let me tell you, the Altaf and the Vardik walks in over here. Boom, the door flies open. He grabs me by my collar. He goes, Donash, what are you? You are nothing. If not for your money, you are nothing. What do you have to go up to the Ayram Hamas with? Because that's why I open everything up for him. Okay? You want to know who I am? Real. Some people, I know we can be on the level of the Altaf and the Vardik, but just to be a little bit real. A little bit real in life. It was the Shabina Rosh Hashiva that was nifter. His name was Avram Ganachavsky. I heard the story from Rav Leibel Wilgers, Rosh Hashanah Tevedas. He said there was a car, they were driving, and somebody came along with him to discuss a very complex Choshen Mishpat Shaila, but a real complicated Choshen Mishpat Shaila. And they're discussing the Shaila, Ktsois and the Sivas, and they stopped to pick up a couple. That was also, they were going from Yerushalayim to Bnei Brak, and this couple was hitching, or somehow it was a last minute thing, and the couple's in the back, and suddenly the Rosh Hashiva stops, and he says to the Dayan who came to discuss the Shaila, he goes, I want to ask you a different Shaila. Yeah? On Chanukah we eat jelly donuts, right? Right. Why? With the Ksais and the Sivas, with Moidav and Mitzvahs, Shuas Hesses, hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line. Let's get the jelly donuts. Wait! Why do we eat jelly donuts? He goes, I guess because of the oil, you know. But there's so much jelly, you don't even feel the oil. I think the Ksas talks about that in Simon. And the guy in the back says, no, we have to know how you make the donut, really, the oil and the jelly and the jelly and the oil. And when they finish, so he says to the Rosh Hashiva, what was that all about? So he says, no, I realized the couple sitting behind. You know, here we're talking Ksais, Nesivis, back and forth. And this guy, you know, the wife was looking at her husband. He wasn't the brightest bulb in the box. And he's like, you know, he said, this is not good. I saw the look in her eyes. This is not good. So I started asking you the Shaila about the jelly donuts, and he started giving an answer, his whole Torah about the jelly donuts. This was necessary. You know what that means? It means the Ktsois that he learned is Torah Lishma. If you're willing to switch to a jelly donut when you have to, it means that the Nesivis that is learning is Torah Lishma. It's very, very different. You know, it's so easy to bang. So easy to bang. Oh, Yankel Miller always says the story that we're quoting everybody tonight. He says, a man comes over to him, he says, you know, can I admit something to you? He says, what? He says, I stole a shtreimel. You stole a shtreimel? Yeah. I mean, you steal a shtreimel. I'm sorry, I stole a shtreimel. What should I do? He says, give it back. He says, that's so hard for me to give it back. You give it back. He says, I don't know if I can give it back. You have to give it back. He says, and like, he says, what if somebody stole your shtreimel? If somebody stole my shtreimel, I would feel bad for a guy that's so desperate to steal a shtreimel. But you go give it back. He goes, and what if the guy tells me it's okay? He says, if he says okay, it's okay. But you go give it back. So he says he comes home and he sees his shtreimel's missing. He comes back to the guy, he says, you told me it's okay, you know? Right? You can manipulate anything. There's a year that went to Menachem Avel, a friend of mine today, said his grandfather, his name was Rabbi Fink, anyone remember the old Lipschitz wines? Remember them? So he said the company went bankrupt, and he took upon himself to pay back, even though it was legally protected under bankruptcy. For years, he paid back a tremendous amount of money. Not only that, the bank offered him 10 cents to the dollar, and he said, no, I'm giving you the whole dollar. And of course, the bank officer almost fell off the chair. Look, you never heard that before. He said, I don't want to, there's a certain amount of Chil Hashem on this world, there's a certain amount of Kiddush Hashem. But you know what he was really saying? He was really saying that when I say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, I believe it! That's what he was really saying. You would think after a bankruptcy you have kindness on the Kadosh Baruch Hu. I have my job to do. A lot easier said than done. But the Kadosh Baruch Hu is the only one who knows we're saying Tali Matal Avracha. My kid came home this morning, he won a yeshiva. I don't know the prizes that come up with this day. This is a good one. A flying alarm clock. He says it's a what? It's a flying alarm clock. It has propellers. So why do you need a flying alarm clock? Because you wake up in the morning and it starts ringing until you catch it. It lifts off a base and it flies around and you have to chase it. I know when I was in yeshiva in the dormitory, I had a roommate that was furious in the morning when the alarm clock went off. There was a flying alarm clock in that room anyway, without the propellers, you know. The alarm clock, the Nego Laster anything that was in his ring went flying. I goes. So then he shows me how it works, you know, that's a flying alarm clock, and, you know, it rings and it goes off and flies around the room. I suggest, though, that you, A, turn off the fans, the ceiling fans, or else it'll have a tickun, you know what I mean? And B, you close the windows when you have a flying alarm clock in your room, because if not, you have to pick up the pieces from the alley and be happy that it didn't land on anyone. So imagine, you know, somebody once said an alarm clock is the most confused bria on the world. Because if he doesn't ring, the guy wakes up and goes, oh, what's with this clock? I'm late! You know, when it rings, the guy goes, oh, boom, like, what do you want from me? Whatever I do is not good, you know? So I said, imagine if you had a flying alarm clock, or there's a rolling alarm clock on wheels. It rolls away. You have to chase it. I'm going to watch Negelwasser first. So imagine someone has this alarm clock in the morning, and it starts rolling away. And it goes, this alarm clock is cuckoo. It's off its rocker. It's off its base. So it's rolling away. And that's what makes it work. You have to chase it. There's times we try to get parnas, and it's rolling away from us. It's rolling away. And we're saying, why is it Baruch Hu making it rolling away? And Baruch Hu says, you don't understand what you're supposed to do, what you're supposed to accomplish. This is it. This is what it's supposed to be. And we don't understand. Our position changes based on who we are. Rabbi Cholder Weissmandel, Zecher Tzadik L'Vracha, they say he was once sitting Shabbos afternoon, and he had some guests, and they were like going on and on. And he was saying, my friends, he said, I can't go to sleep because I have guests. But what's your excuse? He said to them, right? Okay. I had by the Sheva Brachas, they bring in these cakes. So I had, I teach in the yeshiva a little bit, like in the afternoon. So they made this beautiful thing. I took a picture of all the kids. Now you get these picture cakes now. And big cake, and it came on a sweet table, picture of all the kids and the Rebbeim on the cake. It's very funny eating kids. You feel like a cannibal, So we waited till after Shabbos, and I said, okay, now we can eat it. Yeah. And then one of my kids said, I don't know if you want to eat that, huh? I said, why not? He said, because I saw 100 people come by and say, it's so cute. Is this real? A lot of fingers were in this cake, You want it to be really nice and everything. You get a lot of fingers on you. And the Rebbeinu Shem knows how to protect us. And sometimes we think, what's the Rebbeinu Shem doing? It's my parnasa is running away. It's because you don't know. You don't know. As Kol Mini Siviyasal, the type of Bat Vesein Tali Matal of Rabbi Leib Saris was considered the hidden tzaddik of all the tzaddikim. And he was once in a certain inn by someone, and a man came over to him. He thought he was the hidden tzaddik. He said, Rebbe, can you come give me a bracha? Can you come give me a bracha? You want me to give you a bracha? I want you to look at my store. So he went in, and he went into the store, and he said, this is disgusting. These towels, terrible. You wipe yourself, what's going to rip apart to shreds? This towel, this looks like the sword fight those two guys had with the towel in the mikveh. This must have been the towel. This is he makes fun of everything in the store. And he walks out, and the guy's flabbergasted. He goes, I said a bracha, not a klala. Then no one should want to buy anything. He says that night there was a pogrom, and they were looting, and they burst into his store. And he's hiding, cowering behind it. He hears them saying, this is terrible. This stuff, what are we going to do with this stuff? Look at these towels. Looks like we had a fight in the bar with this towel. We're whacking each other. They just left everything. There was one thing of Leif Star said, a pair of gloves. He said, that maybe. And that's the one thing they took. So we didn't understand. What's Kadosh Baruch Hu doing to us? Why is everything falling apart? We don't see the klal in the brach and the brach and the klal. There are a lot of things that are unexplained. Now, so we come to Parasha Vayeshev, Rabbi, so let's wrap things up. There's an unexplainable jealousy. Parasha Vayeshev is the story of life. Chazal tell us Yehuda is getting married, Ruvain is doing tshuva, Yaakov is in Avelus, Yosef is in prison trying to stay alive. They're all in different parts of the civilized world, and the Rabbeinu Shalom is putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu is creating Oiroi Shel Mashiach. And each one had to go through their emotional crisis in order for this puzzle to come together. We don't necessarily understand. And it all started after an unexplainable jealousy and the most obvious mistakes you can think of. Yaakov giving the favorite Ksenas Pasim, and when the brothers were treating each other, the second they sold him, all the kinna went out of their heart, and they could have said, we blew it, we acted like I can't believe what we just did, and there's a certain mahalach over here. Yehuda, Ruvain, Yaakov, Yosef all took the situation and said, forget what was, life goes on. Forget the mistakes. Mistakes were made. They say from the base of Levi, from others, when Yosef said the first dream, they said, what? Hamalach Timlach, you think you're going to be king over us? They said, oh no, dreams go after the interpretation. We just made him king. So the next time he came with the second dream, they said, coming to Tati. They went to Yaakov. Yaakov said, what? Me and my mother and your brothers will all come to bow down to you. They said, "Oh no, we're finished." Yaakov said it. Now we're for sure finished. Now we're done with. It says that Roy Haya Yaakov. It should have been. The plan was for Yaakov to come down to Mitzrayim, the Shalshela Shel Basel, and iron chains. Instead, he would come to Mitzrayim looking for his son. Now, the truth is, he would have asked Yaakov, would he have rather been dragged in iron chains or go through 22 years of crying? Which one is better? The answer is Chazal are telling us something else over here. There was no greater fear for Yaakov than going to Mitzrayim. Yaakov would have liked to bring the Geula and avoid, the Spanish Inquisition and the Holocaust and everything else that went. The fact that he had to go to Mitzrayim meant the process of Golus is starting. And Yaakov would have been dragged in chains to Mitzrayim. Yaakov would have understood Golus is starting. Instead, HaKadosh Baruch Hu arranged it for Yaakov to come down looking for his son. This very moment of coming to Mitzrayim would be the greatest moment of happiness in his life, and the fact that he gets back Yosef. So the Rabban Hashem rearranges Golus in such a way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us a blitz. In other words, Rabban Hashem demands from us to have a munah, and it's tough to have a munah when things aren't going our way. When we have one idea of a kol mini sidiyas l'toiva, and the Rabban Hashem has a different idea of the same talimat l'vracha. But the Rabban Hashem says, I'm going to let you feel that the Or Shel Mashiach is here. I'm creating the Or Shel Mashiach. What does it mean HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Oiroi Shel Mashiach? It means we don't have Mashiach yet, but every once in a while there's a hope in our heart and we really feel good. We know we're heading to something. The world is not going to stay the way it is. I remember Rabbi Berry told me last week when he was in Eretz Yisrael, they used to have, some of the mikveh they have in mikveh today, the hot water, there was safe hot water, so you press it, the hot water goes for like 5 seconds and it goes off, you have to press it again. So they used to have lights that way. Anyone remember this in Eretz Yisrael? You pressed the light and you had like 30 seconds to get up the stairs, and if you stopped in the middle, the light went out. So you had a blitz of light, and you couldn't schmooze, you had to make it up the stairs. Chanukah is a blitz of light. It's a hope in our heart that gives us the koyach. I'm telling you, in the moment of your greatest fear, you will see the greatest simcha. Now, if you go through the process, Vayetze is the birth of Klal Yisrael. We're born, Vayishlach, we're threatened. There's an existential threat. Vayeshev is the pain, and it reaches a climax in Miketz, and Vayigash is the reunion, and Vayechi is the reality of bracha setting in, where Yaakov gives us the bracha for Golus. As a Rebbe, it always was a problem because the most exciting parashiyos are Vayeshev and Miketz, the whole story of Mechiras Yosef. And then you have Chanukah 2 days off. Couldn't we organize this differently? But one of the inyonim in Vayeshev is Vayeshev ends, the story is not over. Right? It's Lahavdil Alpei Alpayim of Dolos. If we were just telling a story, we wouldn't stop at the end of Vayeshev. We're in the middle of nowhere. Miketz also ends. It's not till Vayigash. So basically we go from Vayeshev till Vayigash, we don't know where it's going, and the Shvatim sure don't know where it's going. And Chanukah always comes in the middle. Because the koyach of Chanukah is to instill a light in our heart. Yeah, I know you don't know where it's going, but trust me. You do what you have to do, and things will wind up in the right way. Ner Chanukah, you put over 20 Amos as possible. Because over 20 Amos means it lights up the entire world. It means Mashiach already came. We see the whole story. That's not what Chanukah is. Chanukah is when you're in the dumps. I'm going to light you up down there that you have a sense and you have a feeling, and you still know where you're heading. I would say that one of the brachas of learning Daf Yomi to me is, when I'm facing a crisis, I said, I don't know what's going to be. So I look at the Daf in Masechta Shabbos, wherever I'm up to, Daf Nun Tes, I'm behind, and I say, I hope, the Rebbe Hashem should help. The Rebbe Hashem should give Gezint and Kayach. That in 7.5 years I should be back to Daf Nun Tes. And I doubt that I'm going to be thinking about this crisis. Then I'll be thinking about that crisis then. So okay, so I may as well already start now, not thinking about the crisis. Let it resolve itself. Let me keep learning and let everything else fall into place. And you can do when you say the Yom, Hayim Yom Rishon B'Shabbos, Hayim Sheni B'Shabbos. So some hold you have to say it. The Rabban holds that's the mitzvah Zachos Yom Shabbos L'Kadshay. There's certain things like, by next Monday, let everything be in place. I'll do mine, you take care of it. The Yom Sedra. By next year, Parasha Vayeshev, let things go into place. The famous story of the Rebbitzin, that the first time she heard the story of Mechiras Yosef, Parasha Vayeshev, and someone translated, she cried and cried, and the next year she's like, what's that happened to you this year? She goes, why did he go back? Why did he go back, Yosef? So they say the Beis Yisrael said, it's a real time. Why did he go back? We know where the Nisyonis in our life are. Why don't we move on? Why do we keep falling back? Why do we become miyuyish? And really, if you think about it, that is the brach of Shechiyanu, V'kimanu, V'giyanu Lazman Hazeh. Vayetze is the birth of Klal Yisrael. That's Shechiyanu. He gave us life. Vayishlach is where our existence was threatened by Esav. That's V'kimanu. You gave us a kiyum. Vayeshev is the coexistence between the brothers, the confusion, the separation, the tshuva, the avelis, the rebuilding, the uncertainty, the hopelessness of the situation, where I have to live with the fact I created a pit that I can't get out of. And that's the V'higiyanu. And the Lizman Hazeh is the reunion and Vayigash and the acceptance and Vayechi that goes on. And this is a cycle. Whatever the Shvatim went through is Maisa of a similar banim. It's a cycle in our life. We go through periods of tshuva, of avelos, of rebuilding, of a flash, a settling in for the next wave. That's the B'yam Mehem B'zman Hazeh. But if you give up, you lose the cycle. You don't move on to the next cycle. You know, I heard a beautiful vart this week. The old Tanker Rav, Zachan Levracha, he once came to the Satmar Rebbe, and there were a bunch by Shalashudas, I think, I don't know when it was, but at one point the Chassanim used to sit even on. All the Chassanim sat on the dais. So he asked the Chassanim to move over, and he told the Rav to sit down. The Satmar Rebbe said, move over for him. So he said, why should the Chassanim move over? Chassan daimel melech, a Chassan is compared to a king. So the Satmar Rebbe told him, yeah, but man malki rabbanon, a Rav is also a king. So he said, Tanker Rebbe said in humility, he said to him like this, he said, okay, that's true, man malki rabbanon, he's mamish a king. And the Chassan is only daimel melech. There's only one thing. The Chassan is for sure a Chassan. But the Rav, who says he's a real Rav? Right? You know, who says Min HaShamayim they gave him smicha? So they're more cheskas vadai than I am. You know what a Chassan is? A Chassan is a person who says, I'm willing to start my life anew. As soon as you say that, you're daimel melech. There's a vart from the Katzka. They once told the Rebbe Rabbunim, once came and someone said, I heard a vart from the Rebbe Rabbunim, he told the Katzka, it bothers me. So the Katzka said, what did he say? He said, Yehuda saw he blew it. Oh no, I didn't stop the Mechira of Yosef, and his life crashed with Erev Einan, and his wife died, his children died. So he said, forget about it. He remarried, and he said he's going to start again. He'll at least still be Mekayim the mitzvah of Pru Revu. Forget about me, I'm lost, I'll start with my kids. So he said to him, you'll start with your kids? He gave up on his own life. How could the Rebbe Rabbunim say it? So the Katzka said, you didn't understand what he said. He said, what a mess. What a mess. I allowed my brother to be sold. What a mess. I lost my godless. I was sent away by my brothers. What does Yehuda do? Start again from the first mitzvah in the Torah, Pru Revu. You don't give up. You keep going. You start again. When you start again, you're a chassan. It was the Rav Hutner's yard, I think it was yesterday, beforehand. So you know, he was hijacked in that famous story for 2 weeks. He was hanging between life and death, and they were in the hot desert, and under the terrorists held him by, and at the end, when he came out, so that Rosh Hashanah, he spoke. He never spoke Rosh Hashanah. He said, Chazal say, what's called Yisurim Shalahava, She'ein Ben Bittul Torah. He said, if I don't come out, and I don't start learning more and teaching more, then the Yisurim are not Yisurim Shalahava. It's very hard. It's hard to move on. It's called Minis of Yasla and the world crashes. But you have to remember the same Tali Matal of Rachel. So the Yimri Yemen says a beautiful thing. He says, you know, Purim we celebrate when the war was over. Chanukah we celebrate when the war started. He says, Achav Hei B'Kislev, that's when the war started. It lasted years. Truth is, it was never really over. It just continued from the Greeks to the Romans. So why do we celebrate the beginning of the war? Because he says the koyach of Chanukah is that we have the power to instill with us a light that gives us the chizik to go on. Chanukah is not resolution to problems. Chanukah is the light to be able to go on. And that's why Chanukah has to be lamata me'asara tvachim. So the Mizritch Maggid had a chavrusa. When the Maggid became the Rebbe, and people started asking him business advice and all sorts of things, so the chavrusa says, not learning of you anymore! Why not? He said, you're busy with world, and I need someone that's totally committed to Torah. He said, let me tell you a story. It says in the Zohar that HaKadosh Baruch Hu learned with the neshamas of tzaddikim before Bria Sa'olam. One of those persons said, what did Hashem just say? Yekavu Amayim? He's busy with the world? I'm not learning with Hashem anymore. Stakel bi'araisi bara alma. No, the world is Hashem. The world is the Torah. The Torah is the blueprint of the world. You have to take the Torah into the world. You have to know when to switch from jelly donuts to not speaking Lashon Hara to doing chesed. You have to figure out what's happening around you. That's your achrayus. When you become a chassan, when life goes on. And it goes on. We mentioned last week, there's Olam Shana Nefesh. Every single person has a chelik, has a letter in the Torah. There's one letter in the Torah that corresponds to each and every one of us. Yisrael is Rashi Tevas, yes, Shishim, Ribi, Yosiyas, L'Torah. It doesn't, there's less than that, so the whole land, there's different, like an aleph could be 4, different ways of counting. That's why it's every time it's missing a kutzay shel yud is puzzle. And that's why the letters can't touch each other, because if one guy tries to push into someone else's way, you also puzzle the Sefer Torah. And the Shlach Kaddish says every year has a chelik in Eretz Yisrael. And we all have a Shabbos, which is our Shabbos. And it corresponds to each other. The Torah, the chelik in Eretz Yisrael, and the Shabbos. Together it's Olam Shana Nefesh. We've mentioned this before, Rashi Tevis Asha. Everything that happens in our life is a combination of 3 factors. Where we are, with whom we are dealing with, and the period of time. And those 3 come together. We see them as 3 independent entities, like my luck, you know? Now here I have to lose my wallet, in this neighborhood, or like, whatever goes on, I have to be stuck in an elevator with this person, or I got to work, I'm assigned to work with this, oh no, how am I going to do this? We look at we ask questions. What are the tiniest people have in this life? Why here? Why do I have to be here for Shabbos? I don't want to be here for Shabbos. Oh, why me? Why him? Why now? Because we look at it as separate entities. But if you're minded that everything is Ashgacha Pratis, that you are here, and you are who you are, and you are the now, it's all one thing orchestrated by Hashem, because it reflects your Nisayan, boy, life becomes a lot easier. So he said that it says, the Ner Chanukah is on the left side, the Lashon in the Gemara is that the Mezuzah is on the right, and the Lashon of the Medrash is, I think it's Medrash Tanchuma, that Adam wearing tzitzis is in the middle. Ner Chanukah is all three. The Chanukah is the Shana, is the time. Ner Chanukah is, it has to burn at a specific time period. The Mezuzah is the place, is the house. The Nefesh is the person. We're saying, Rabbeinu Shalom, I have my Nisayan. You gave me my Nisayan at this moment. And the Nisayan consists of the people I have to live with, deal with, work with, who I am and where I am, and you orchestrated all of this for me to perform. When you understand that, you stop having tainas on the Rabbeinu Shalom. It's no longer why here, why me, and why now. The here and the me and the now, it has to work, because this is my chelik in the Torah. This is my Mesiras Nefesh. And Chanukah has a koyach that it encourages a person to believe that. Ner Chanukah is the only mitzvah where you have, there's a din, if you see the Ner Chanukah, you make a bracha, if you don't have an opportunity to make a bracha. I once heard someone told me he learned that halacha when he was little, but it's only if you don't have a chance to light yourself. Who sees a Chanukah lech doesn't have a chance to light himself? He says when he was going through Hungary in one of the transports, and he saw people didn't know what was going on, and they were still lighting Chanukah lech. He had an opportunity to make the bracha. He said never he couldn't make the bracha of Shas Nisim when he saw the Ner Chanukah because the train wasn't clean, there were no bathrooms. But he said, oy vey. But it gave him a chizik that life goes on. So somebody told me an interesting story. There was a man that owed him a tremendous amount of money, and so I noticed firsthand. And finally, the guy gave him a partial check. Let's say he gave him whatever the check was, a couple of $1,000 toward the chayv. So he waited 6 months for this one check. He runs to the bank, he deposits it. I know because he gave me a check and that check bounced. I said, what happens? I don't know. And he calls the bank. They said the deposit was reversed. So right away he was going to blow up on this guy. He gave me a check that bounced. He calls the bank. No, they didn't say insufficient funds. They said, what happened with the check? They don't know. Me don't know. One of those fluke things that they have it on record that the check was deposited, but some computer glitch, they don't know why it didn't get deposited. They know he deposited the check, but they don't know where the check is. So give me back the check. We don't know where the check is. It's got lost in the system. But we know you deposited. Well, we're going to investigate. It'll take a couple of months. We'll figure out what happened. He needs the money. Figure out what happened. So he says, well, I don't believe it. Pick this check that I'm waiting. He says, you don't understand what Hashem is teaching you. Okay? He wanted to punch me for this at first. But at the end, I think it's an emes. He says, it was bashert for you not to get this money for 12 months. But all along, you were angry at that guy. If only that guy would be more responsible. If only I would have never done the deal with him. It would have never happened. You know what Hashem is showing you? Okay. Let's take the guilt off him. He gives you the check, and now be angry at the bank. You're only going to get the check when you're supposed to get the check. That's what Hashem is showing you. So the first 6 months you blamed him. So now you see now that the first 6 months had nothing to do with him either. It has to do with when Hashem wants you to get the check. Let's come in and say, if you think about life this way, you deal with whomever and whenever and wherever very, very different. And that's why Ner Chanukah is on the left side, not the right side like all other mitzvahs. Ner Chanukah is l'mata me'asar tvachim. Ner Chanukah is at night, because the whole point of Ner Chanukah is to tell you when you are in the dumps in your life and it looks like the world is caving in on you. Whoa, slow down. Slow down. The Rebbe Hashem knows when to do the mitzvah. Shem Ramina brings a story that there was a Megeifa once, Rachman al-Islam, against women who were dying, Rachman al-Islam. And there was Amma Oretz, he was davening for the Amma, he burst into tears. And he stopped the Megeifa. By Rafa'inu, he flew by. You know the touch of the words. By Baruch Aleinu, he burst and starts crying. Now he's crying. And he finished, Baruch Ata Hashem, Mevarech Hanoshim, he said. That's how he was saying it all his life. Instead of Mevarech Hashem, he was saying Mevarech Hanoshim. But he broke the Gzeira. I want to conclude with a story. In Aleppo, in 1947, there was a Yid, big tzaddik, Tzien Yitzchak Laniado, he was the Rav. He was an Ish Kaddish. And Simchas Torah night, everybody was dancing, and they had the Swadesh Sefer Torahs and the beautiful covers, the silver casings, and they were open, and two Sefer Torahs, like simultaneously, as if on cue, fell out and fell to the floor. And there was a pachat and kamayu, and everyone froze. All you heard were the babies crying. And the Rav said to stop dancing, and he told them to fast. And the next day they had to fast because they fasted on Simchas Torah. They started a 30-day process of slichas. But the whole time he was very happy. No, he's fasted and said slichas. But on the other hand, he showed like, take it easy. And after 30 days, the slichas was over. He came in one morning. He used to give a shiur before Vasikan, a pre-Vasikan shiur. And he stopped the shiur. He started talking about Misas and Shika. No one understood what he meant. And then they brought him a coffee. He made a Schachter. As tzaddikim sometimes right before the P'tira make a Schachter. And he passed away. Later, somebody came in, one of his gaboim, an attendant, and he began to scream that the Rebbe came to him in a dream, and he says he's being mispalel for everyone. There's a terrible gzeira, and no one knew how to deal with it. Well, what happened afterwards we think about the UN vote now, that the UN vote then in 1947 was for the partitioning of Palestine, and suffice it to say that their neighbors in Syria and Aleppo were not very happy about this. And there were riots all over the place. In the city of Aleppo, 1,500 Sifrei Torah were burnt in those riots. And everything went aflame. It's very interesting. But not a single person was killed or seriously injured. This shul was not touched at all. And he said he was davening for the people. The Gabbai kept saying, wait, he's davening for us. What does that mean? So think about what happens. It's the worst tragedy in the world when a Sefer Torah falls to the floor. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu does that, the Rebbeinu Shem says, I am willing to put my covet in the greatest bazayon to wake you up, to save your life. A lot of times when the Sefer Torah in our life falls to the floor, chas v'shalom, we say, God doesn't like me, that's it, I can't learn, I can't daven, I'm finished, I'm over with. It's not what the Rebbeinu Shem wants. As Kol Mini Seviyas L'Toiva is our dream, but the same Talimat L'Vrach is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows. That's the Ner Chanukah that is Lamata Me'asar Tvachim. When it seems like it can't be any worse than this, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is now giving you that little light. That's the bracha and the protection and the umbrella of Shechiyanu, V'Kimanu, Lazman Hazeh. Amen.